Hey there everyone, and welcome back to the truck that eventually will dump. This truck does pretty well for its size. It can haul about 2 tons, no problem. But I'd rather do 3. Yeah, before I build the dumping part of this, I'd like to get the payload up to the maximum that these tires will handle. These 8-ply 65 psi tires. And such a sturdy set of tires attached to some pretty thick leaf springs also tends to give a bit of a stiff ride. And made a little jerkier when you got something with significant tongue weight here, which puts a bit of leverage on this truck being attached way out at the back there. Now, we're not going to solve all of those problems completely with this. A weight distributing trailer hitch might be in order. But what will definitely fix that payload shortcoming and should improve the ride quality and trailer handling a bit is a set of these 5,000 pound rated air springs, which comes in a handy dandy bolt-on kit for this truck. And actually looks to be a pretty good setup in that the way this truck is laid out with the springs mounted directly under the frame rail, the bolt-on bracketry here won't even be taking very much stress, as we're pretty much sticking the spring right between the axle and the frame, which will also take some stress off of these unfortunate leaf spring bushings, which get worn out quite quickly when putting heavy loads on them. These were nice new stiff urethane bushings not too many years ago. And look where the bolt is now in relation to the center, where it probably ought to be. And you can even get all manner of fancy automatic compressor systems for these things. Keep it perfectly level and make it easily adjustable from the dashboard and all that. Of course, that is not in the budget. It comes with a bit of plastic airline, and we'll just run some fittings out near the rear bumper somewhere and do this manually. You want to jack the axle rather than just the frame, because we don't want to overstretch these air springs. But you can see here that in our current partially loaded condition, there's not going to be enough room there to get the thing in. So, got the Nissan jack over here to lift up the frame a bit until there's exactly the right distance to easily install this piece. Looks like we have our first complication here. This lower bracket needs to go like so, but the brake line seems to be in the way at both ends. I can't remember if this is a brake line that I made, or I don't know if it's one that has been done after the factory or not, but I'm going to have to see if I can bend it out of the way. Maybe I can just rotate the whole thing upward and slip the flanges of this bracket under it. Not that way. There, okay, we're clear on this end. What do we need there? Okay. Trying to avoid opening the brake system, making a new line, bleeding everything. Okay, I want this to be against the U-bolt there, like so. And that is just, it's just clearing. But we want a little bit of space there so vibration doesn't cause a leak later. Okay, got away with that one. Then at the top, ordinarily there's the rubber bump stops here. But, well, not that ordinarily. The truck starts out with having some rubber bump stops there. Usually at least one of them falls off its mounting plate. Anyhow, that was, I'm sure, the case on this one, and I removed their mounting plates when I painted the frame. So, ready to go there. So, bolt-on, no-drill kit, right? Well, once again, I've had to take matters into my own hands. Make it suit my application. And of course, this kit covers several models of truck, and I was unable to find any model-specific instructions. And what the general instructions don't refer to is the cross member right up here that is directly in line with where the rear bolt needs to go. So I started looking around, and you see this little notch here, or it can be better seen on this bracket, that lines right up with where the bump stop was in there, which is of course a bolt broken off in the hole on all locations on this truck. Don't really want to use that. And furthermore, the information that I did find about this particular model on this kit is they were wanting 3 inches of clearance between the frame and the tire here, which I had a hard time believing and chose to ignore. Because why would you take a 5,000-pound air spring kit and make it unusable on the only model in the series that could support that much weight, the dual wheel model? Like, I'm not going to get different wheels for this. That's ridiculous. That would be most likely a very expensive custom job, more expensive than the truck probably, and I don't want this truck to be any wider. That's the whole point of this thing, to be compact and sturdy. So I had to have a read and a fiddle and a think for a while, because, well, I know that I'm absolutely going to make this work one way or the other, not worried about that. When someone claims that the kit is bolt-on, you'd kind of like to know what they were thinking. So I was trying to find those model-specific instructions. What I did eventually find is the old set of instructions for an older kit that appears to be exactly the same, except for the addition of these notches for the fancy new D21 model here. It only mentioned the Datsun, where these slots were used to bolt it on with the bump stop bolts. So, got a verification of what they were thinking there. But, I don't want this thing sticking out here. Not going to work in this case. And that would have been protruding farther this way than what it looks like from the alignment of this slot, because this bracket is now turned around. It's not symmetrical in where the air spring mounts. I eventually worked out from fiddling with this bottom bracket in the same position, pressed tightly against this outer U-bolt, which is nice. If I just use a different mounting hole here, it was originally intended to go, there's one center bolt into the bottom of the air spring. was intended to go there, toward the wheel side of things. If I move it to here and turn this bracket around, we've got perfect alignment there in that position, about 1.5 inches farther in, away from the tire. And I put the tire on and verified clearance there, and it's just lovely. So, next problem, the cross member in the way. Well, I just did some gauging here with the bolt and clamping this thing in place. Drilled a hole through the cross member. So it's a 1 drill kit, or 1 drill per side. Fine. And actually, that means the top of this bolt is held more nicely, being right on top of a cross member here. So that's all good. What changes? Well, firstly, what is pretty much the same, that's still almost entirely on that lower bracket. It actually would have been overhanging a little bit in the other direction, so no different than what they intended there. Lovely. Then at the top, it's hanging a little bit inside the frame rail there. But the air spring is still centered over the inside edge of the frame rail here, so weight is transferred decently. And this top bracket rigidifies the whole thing, and all this would potentially do is put a bit more stress on these outer bolts here, as it might try to lever a bit that way on the inside, give it a bit of a twist, thereby pulling down on these bolts. But you've got the air pressure of this side of the spring working against that, holding this edge up. I'm not sure if that's even a factor. I don't expect it to be a big deal, but if it is, there's plenty that could be done. I could easily, once this is tightened up, that gap will be closed there. And you could easily put a bit of weld there. Or I could put some steel in here between the inner edge of the bracket and the cross member, and that would be the end of that. But I really don't even expect that to be an issue. I'm just going to see how it goes. So, having worked all that out, I just need to disassemble this thing once more and bolt it all together. Bolt the air spring to its upper and lower bracket before placing it in here. Screw the air fitting in here, and then bolt it all in tightly. After verifying alignment, of course, you put it in here loosely and twist it around until everything looks square on the spring. Okay. It's always something. So of course on the other side here we have something in the way. This former brake line holder, the remaining tab of it, is right there where the corner of this bracket needs to go. I'll have to grind that off. And then the other difference over here is that this is the exhaust side, so we have this heat shield that we stack in here. And I've got it facing angled a little frontwise here because I'm going for the largest mass of heat here, the muffler. Alright, there that is. And then the air lines are just plastic. You can cut them with a knife, and they just push into the fittings on the airbag, and I've routed them back here where I enlarged a couple of existing holes in the bumper. And they just push into those fittings as well. And upon lowering this first side, passenger side, you can see a slight side-to-side misalignment in the bag there. So on the other one, I've spaced it about 5/16 of an inch, 8 millimeters-ish away from this U-bolt. And now I will just loosen this one and do the same. We can put up to 100 psi in here, but I don't think that'll be necessary for this load. And also, we're going to test a little bit at a time. So we've got the automatic compressor here. And let's just set it for, say, 10. Go for 20. Nice. You seem to be doing well. How about 35? Well, that's lovely. Let's bring the other one up to 35. Well, now that's sitting pretty nicely for having a heavy trailer on there. Let's say we go for a drive.